welcome to Talking Tech. I'm your host, Caroline Hill, and I am here with Tony McKenna, who is Chief Information Officer of Lawfront, to reflect back on 2025 and forward a little bit into 2026. As many of you will know, you'll know Tony. He was previously president of the International Legal Technology Association. He was also previously Director of IT and Change at UK top 100 law firm Howard Kennedy, and has very recently taken on the role of CIO of Lawfront. Hi, Tony.
Hi, Caroline. How you doing? All right?
I'm fine, thank you. Great to see you in your new role. Very exciting.
Yes, very exciting. A lot to do. Very busy. Big change from what I've been used to over the last sort of 10, 12 years with large-scale law. And LLP partnership ownership, Lawfront, very different model, and but loving it. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, it's an exciting model, and I think we're not here. We will talk about Lawfront separately, but we're not here to talk about Lawfront. But it's an exciting time to be part of a PE-backed firm. I think maybe actually relevant to the 2025-26 story. Actually, we spoke at the end of 2024. Where we looked back at that year. I can't believe it's a year ago. And we talked about how it kind of stacked up against expectation. And I think that you described it as a year of two halves. You said that there had been hype, just to track back just a tiny bit further, you said that there had been a lot of hype in 2023. Then everything started to slow down in 2024. You were hoping to get access, or the legal profession was hoping to get access to things like Copilot, but that was slower than expected. Then that all started to change. So Microsoft relaxed their licensing laws in the spring of 2024, but adoption was a bit slow, wasn't it? Then you and I caught up this year at ILTACON after the G100 and 200, and it was quite a different vibe, wasn't it? So to talk me through this past year and how it's kind of track to expectation, where I think your anticipation was that there would be, perhaps a bit better adoption. I suppose that's a simple way of describing it.
Yeah, I think through the course of 2025 we've seen a real significant increase in adoption, particularly around the Copilot chat. I think with some of the changes that Microsoft have made through 2024 and into 2025 with licensing, it really made Copilot chat and access to Copilot much more general availability. And also I think the law firm really grasped a hold of the fact that this was something they could deploy to the masses and people could then start to run with it. We did it in Howard Kennedy. We did a whole program of activity around education, around how to use Copilot chat, and that just gathers arms and legs and has really run itself. And adoption stats here at Lawfront are in the 70-80% around, as I say, Copilot chat and sort of general use cases around how you're using Copilot chat. The broader Copilot for Word, Excel, PowerPoint, we're seeing a lot more adoption of that, particularly in Outlook and things like that, where we're beginning to show people how to use those productivity tools. And again, as I say, through late spring into summer of 2025 at Howard Kennedy, as part of those roadshows, you can see people starting to get much more familiar and starting to use it more as a workaday tool, particularly in the Microsoft stack. We also done a load of work with Gilo. Again, I think we talked about those sort of big cathedral solutions that are in the market, the Harveys, the Legaros, those other products, and how difficult it was to show an investment case or a business case to support our size of law firm, which was Howard Kennedy. But whereas we've used the Gilo platform in Howard Kennedy to great effect, where we've got real use cases. But we've also diversified and started to look at products specifically for projects. So where you've got a high volume of documents, you want to extract the metadata, you want to apply more logic to that. We connected with a Canadian company who had a specific Gen AI tool that was really geared to that type of activity. And that was a tangible demonstration back to a client. So I think through 2025, we have become much more proficient in understanding how to apply generative AI and AI generally. The business, the colleagues in the legal world have become much more open to using it for specified use cases where you can really track back on and remove all that kind of fear around hallucination, etc., etc. So, yeah, I think it's been a fantastic year, 2025.
Yeah, so you're forecast around so many things to unpack. So one thing maybe to come back to is the right tool for your firm, right? So
Absolutely.
I think that's been an interesting focus, perhaps awareness. I mean, although I have seen the converse, I have seen a lot of we've got to have it because they've got it. Maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong, but there's also, I think some smart money on what's our firm need and what are our use cases and how do we use our resource to best effect. I think that there's, but just to stay on the Microsoft. I mean, you think you were right then. You said, there's going to be a very heavy focus on the Microsoft stack. I mean, there always has been within law firms, but it has come to pass as well. I think I've seen this growing focus on how more you can leverage the Microsoft stack, and because obviously there's been, I think 2025 has been one of those years where the lack of integration has been a challenge, and you and I was lucky enough to speak about this with you at our Legal IT Insiders 30th. And, so I think the Microsoft stack has been, you forecast that there would be even greater focus on it. And I think that has come to pass.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, Caroline, we'll see a lot more of that 2026, 27 and beyond. The SharePoint DMSs where you're using native Copilot within Microsoft will be, legal industry is Microsoft heavy. That's a reality, as is broader professional services. And I think you'll start to see where things integrate into not colleagues' normal workflow. You'll start to see easier adoption. As I said, we've seen that with Copilot Chat, and I think that's where the smart money will be, particularly for broad adoption. Where you're in sort of generalized use cases. But I still say that the smart money will always be on specific use cases, business cases, investment cases, where you are bringing technology to bear to add value that directly impacts colleagues and clients. That money, that for me is still the smart money, and that will be the longer term future. And it's easier for colleagues to understand the value proposition.
You said something I'd love to talk about just briefly, because there's been again this year a focus on buy versus build, and you've been in I'm not a techie. I still view myself as a lawyer, but I've done this a really long time, less time than you. I've seen enough buy versus build conversations and challenges, right? I feel like and I've written this year a lot about build versus buy, the whole argument about how do you get the most, how do you leverage or get the most of your special sauce as a firm, and how do you use technology to the best competitive advantage? And we've seen firms building their own internal systems, proprietary systems, which is great. But we've seen this. What's so fascinating about that is you made an observation to me at our 30th or wherever about, well, what happens when the people who build it move on? I think that was such an interesting observation. I think it's something maybe for people to focus on for next year.
Absolutely. I think one of the challenges is if you're a technology leader and you've come from a build background, then it feels easy to go to build. My challenge has always been when somebody builds something for you that then is proprietary to your organization. Remember, we're a law business, we're not a technology business. Where does that go? How do you translate that through the service chain from the innovation idea, the building of it, the excitement, the hype, through to actually run this product in our live environment? And it's really all the intellectual property sits with one or two people in your organization. And therefore you end up moving what are relatively expensive resources in the build stage through to spending 50-60% of their time in support, where you've got relatively commoditized services, you know. So for me, that's never been the option. For me, working with partners in the market, Intapp, Latera, Gilo, you know, there are a number of organizations who are really happy to work with you to understand your business challenges and their technology businesses. That their business is to build quality grade technology that is simple for colleagues to use. And for me, then it becomes the supportability is baked into their organizations. So it just feels like we're a technology group inside a law firm, and law is what we do as a business. And for me, making sure that we understand how to get the secret sauce, as you say, well, what is unique to Lawfront or Howard Kennedy or to any of the businesses that you can then influence the legal technology providers to support you in configuring their tools in a way that works really well for your business, which then in turn delights your clients. For me, that's the way to deliver the service from an in-house technology service team.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting whether like, some people would say we're going to be tech businesses, you know, like some people would argue that we're not going to be eventually legal businesses. We'll be sort of technology companies that deliver legal services. Of all of the ones that are disruptive, your firm actually is kind of up there, really, you know, at the top, one of the top in terms of disruption.
This is true. The ownership model is up there in terms of disruption, but at the end of the day, our business is still to delight our clients and with the best legal services that they can get, and make those legal services really affordable to everybody that comes through the door. So from a disruption point of view, it's the model, it's the ownership, it's the how can we provide those high-end technology services through to some of the firms that maybe wouldn't have been able to afford that because of scale or because they can't afford to have those types of individuals working within their firm, because there's the big attraction to the big law firms, you know. So I think delighting our clients that come through the door is still number one for law firm. It's still the way that we see each of the individual firms operating, making sure that our lawyers and support colleagues can provide the best level of service through to those clients, with a different operating model at the back end, where we are using private equity money to invest and grow and build that type of brand and really transform the market from a quality point and a quality point at the regional level. I believe that by the end of 26, Lawfront's businesses will have the same level of technology as you would expect if you were a Magic Circle lawyer, and I have no problem stating that fact.
I love that. So let's, I mean, I feel like there's more to talk about with 25, to be honest, but that, I guess in light of time, is there anything that we've missed for 25 before I ask you to get your crystal ball out?
Yeah, I think the big things for 2025, I think we had a very good year for events. I thought your event, your 30th event, was a wonderful event. I thought the way it was run was really creative, and you know, hopefully we don't have to wait another 30 years to have another one of those, Caroline.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought EltaCon in the US was magical. We had a bumper, an absolutely stellar year. We had over 4,000 delegates, 4,500 delegates. We had hundreds of business partners, great amount of startups, and fabulous conversation. And the G100 and G200 was really energetic around, you know, really upbeat around technology and what technology can do for firms. So, yeah, I think it's been a great year for that. And obviously, there are others in the market, you know, the British Legal Tech Group and all that kind of stuff. I think we've had a pretty good year with some really good events, and yeah, I'm totally looking forward to 2026.
Is it was it hard to get other work done? Like with all the, I mean, you've got a big project, as you just discussed. If you can call it a project, it's more than that. But with all the Gen AI noise? Was it harder there's obviously lots of other stuff that people are working on. I've got a new law tech clinic starting in the Orange Rag, which we had for the first time this month, talking about case management, which I know is a big, lots of firms are looking at that, I guess sorry, I will talk about 2026, but like I guess it's about now thinking, is everything going to change? Like, what does it all look like? Can you talk about this without talking about Gen AI?
Honestly, Caroline, I think you can. I think a lot of the conversations that I have with my peers is still building in stable, reliable, secure platforms. We cannot lose sight of the security and the cyber threat. Building that stable and reliable platform while starting to bring in those more innovative technologies to support our colleagues. But yeah, I think there's a lot of investment still to be done in the normal practice of the law. We still have to incept matters, we still have to comply, we still have to do our KYC, AML, all that kind of good stuff. We still want to be able to keep our virtual files with our content that's version controlled and histories. There's SRA compliance. So all of that stuff still needs to go on. And often people forget about that. And building on sand is the worst thing that you can do. So yeah, a lot of my colleagues are still making sure that there's significant investment in stable, reliable and secure. And case management, certainly for us at Lawfront, front is that case management is going to be a clear differentiator where we're taking those cultural excellences across each of those individual firms and creating a good stroke best practice that we can then push back into each of the individual firms is from a case management point of view, is that's where we see that we can really support each of those individuals firms evolving and developing.
Yeah. And let's not forget Andy Powell's cloud survey.
Andy Powell's cloud survey. I mean,
where we find that everyone assumes that everyone's in the cloud. They're not.
Exactly. That's so true. And the limitations of not being there are a real challenge, because some firms have still got large scale investments in on-premise equipment and stuff like that. So it makes it more challenging.
2026. So what's your crystal ball? Because we can chat again next year and we'll see whether it's come to pass. So what do you think? It's kind of a funny one, because in some ways you'd normally think how much will change, but actually at the moment I think things are going to change probably quite quickly. What's your predictions?
I think we'll see more investment in the kind of DMS. I think the portability of DMS is certainly up there with moving stuff into the cloud with the two main providers at the moment. I think that portability is there, and therefore when Interact SharePoint solution becomes marketable, there's also AtGroup who've got something coming out as well. I think there'll be a few SharePoint migrations, and I think it will be different from the noughties when everybody took a sharp intake of breath and thought, wow, that's insane, SharePoint, it's not enterprise ready for a legal DMS. I think the world has moved significantly, and I think that will be, for me, 2026 will be interesting to see how that lands and how many take that up as an offer. I think definitely those extensions of generative AI into the existing providers in the doc space, so your iManage and your NetDocs, I think they'll start to get a bit more traction, and people will start to use them Workaday. It comes back to this, using that type of technology in your normal workflow. It gets the best traction. So from a crystal ball point of view, I think DMS will be an interesting space in 2026. And I think you'll also see more and more investment in full stack Copilot. You'll start to see people, those implementations that were limited will start to provide better use case, better investment propositions, and you'll start to see that bleeding out into becoming almost like this thesaurus or spell check. Could you imagine, certainly for me, dyslexic, I couldn't imagine living without spell check or thesaurus, but actually using Copilot Draft it picks up on a load of those things for me as a dyslexic person. And one of the functions that I think is unbelievably brilliant is read aloud. I keep telling all my boys and girls, and anybody that will listen to me, before you send a note, read it back to yourself using the read aloud function. It picks up every single nuance, everything you've got on, particularly for me as a dyslexic. But often people forget, or they miss bits, or they assume parts that people understand. And I think those types of technology, voice technology, will be in a different place by the end of 2026. So yeah, they're the kind of things that I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with.
I don't use that. I need to use that. We do use it.
So
My
good.
colleagues use it for like all kinds of stuff. But it's a fascinating time, isn't it? Okay. Any wild predictions, Tony? Last one. Anything sort of a bit out there?
Oh, geez, no wild predictions. No, I think that's.
Is
I'll leave
that
that to the more entrepreneurial innovators of the world, the Derek Southalls and people like that, to come up with wild predictions. But I do see certainly from a selfish point of view, our group, Lawfront, I do see us continue to gain market footprint. I think we have an excellent model, and my main challenge is to make sure that the technology keeps pace with the business appetite.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to speak next year. I think it's going to be another busy year, which I think.
Absolutely.
So let's hope everyone has a rest. Rest up, everybody, because I think we're also going to be putting our skates back on in January.
Yeah. Hold on to your hats. It's going to be fast, and yeah, I'm thoroughly looking forward to it.
Yeah, likewise. I can't wait. Have a great break, and I look forward to catching up next time.
You too, Caroline. Have a fantastic festive season, and I'll see you in 2026.